What was life like in Saltley School when it opened in 1928?
Well, I wasn't here. I didn't come till 1929. But all I can say, it was very impressive. There was a very impressive entrance. There was a parquet floor, very, very sort of shiny. And you really felt that you were going into a school of quality. But I don't know whether you know, but the government decided that they would pay for a group of maintained grammar schools. The other ones were the ones you had to pay. So a number of us were able to have a step forward, because I was working class then, the same as everyone else. But as you can see, we've progressed since then. Yeah.
What were the teachers and the headmaster like?
Well, the headmaster wasn't altogether liked, because he wasn't very good at assembly, because he used to tell everyone off for bringing dirt about, and he didn't sort of, generally speaking, I don't think that the children liked him, but they did realise that he was a good headmaster and that he was a very good organiser. And he used to say to me, when I was later on, that I don't mind not being liked, but I want to be respected. And he was respected, because although he was hard, and his discipline was hard, he was fair. And another thing about him was that he backed up the staff. If anybody complained, he would always back up the staff, which of course to them was wonderful.
What were your...
The teachers, well, there are too many to go into, but they were a first-class lot of teachers, and like the ones you've got today.
What were your favourite hobbies and leisure pursuits when you were at school?
Well, I used to go to the debating society. We used to go swimming. We used to play tennis. We used to have fete days and sports days. And and there was a wonderful, while I was there, the head of my department was a Cambridge student, Girton Cambridge student. And her productions were the best of any in the country. That's not been mentioned. It's a pity, because she was exceptional.
What was her name?
Miss Thompson, Kathleen Thompson. I don't think she's had enough praise for what she did. She was assisted by Mr. Bennett, who was also very good.
That's Biffa Bennett.
That's Biffa Bennett.
Biff, and he used to throw, a rubber.
Still got the scars.
He shouldn't have been.
Blackboard rubber.
He shouldn't have been in a school like this. He ought to have been in the university, because he was really university trained, but he didn't know how to cope with young children. It wasn't his scene at all.
What was your favourite subject at school and why?
Oh, English. And history. English and history were my favourite ones. But I like geography too. I think it's a pity that you haven't got the 5 basic subjects now, which I think you ought to have as a basis for your education.
Who were the most significant people in your opinion from the last century, and why?
Do you mean in politics?
I think generally, yes. It ties in the history curriculum as well, in general, yeah.
That's a difficult question, isn't it? I didn't care for Tony Blair taking us into the Iraq War. I think that was very ill-advised. But I must say his wife did very well. I mean, from a working class background, she got a very first-class lawyer's degree. So I don't think he did us much good, really. But I was ashamed. I was sorry, because I was really more Labour than anything else. I can't answer that without a lot of thought.
Excellent.
How has the position of women changed in your lifetime?
Oh, terrifically. I mean, if you were a wife and mother, that was your role. And they've missed so many people. But it gradually got better, because when they started these grammar schools for ordinary people, women started to come out. They started to be good at physics, at science, at all sorts of things. And there was a very first-class results from our time. But I think you're very lucky, because you've got much more chance than we had.
Who has been the greatest leader in the world during your lifetime?
Oh, well, we were bombed. We hadn't got any money. In fact, we hadn't got any money for fuel. We used to go up to the gasworks and pick up anything we could find. And I went home and we got not going to fire anything. So one night I came back to the school. I went down to the boiler room and I stole some coke. And we had some food and drink. We had some heat for a little while. But I was never caught.
Till now.
So you just admitted it.
So you see, we didn't always do things by the book.
I think you just missed the question.
There was one.
I don't think you can imagine what it was like. It was really very difficult. And there was so much bombing going on and so much death, but let's hope you never have that.
I mean, how much what was the atmosphere in school like? Do you remember during the war? Were you here in the war?
Well, they were evacuated for a time. During that time, I was a local government officer, and I worked for the man. He was a major who'd been a Camel Corps leader in the First World War, and he was given the job of dealing with the evacuation of the children, and I was his secretary, and he did the whole of the evacuation of children from Birmingham. He did, but from how he did it, being a major in the Camel Corps in the First World War, I don't know, but he was a lovely man. But anyway.
So when the school was evacuated, did the pupils just
They
get
went
bused to another school, or did they actually go and live somewhere else?
Yes, they went to Hinckley and other places, and then the bombing became less, so they came back and the school restarted. But it was always very cold and very miserable, and we had very little to eat. The only thing is, we had a sweet ration, and that was always very acceptable. Do you remember?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
May I ask a question about a leader again? We missed a question there, Edna. What's the question? The question about the leader. Who has been the greatest leader in the world during your lifetime?
Well, I told you, Blair wasn't.
No, two different questions.
I know. Oh, is it another question?
Yeah, I should have numbered these. You just given your experience of World War II, that's great. Who's the greatest leader in the world during your lifetime?
Well, I think Churchill was.
Churchill.
Because it was because of him that we survived. Because if it hadn't been for the way he pursued the war, he made mistakes. Don't think that. I mean, he was very wronged of some of the things he did, but his spirit kept us all. There used to be a broadcast, and after he told us, we're all on our own, but we won't give in. And I think he was the greatest man. And in a way, I was sorry that he was put out of politics. But of course, the forces people didn't want him. He was past. They wanted to build something new, like your school, and so they got him out. But during war years, he was the leading man.
What were your experiences during World War II? How were you and your family affected?
Well, that was the one I told you about when I stole the coke.
That's the next question. About gratitude.
What are your proudest achievements in life?
Sorry?
What are your proudest achievements in life?
Well, to be alive, to be compos mentis, to encourage you lot, because I think you've got a great future. At first, I didn't like you at all, because you were against. You see, the school was built on intellectual values. Well, that's not the only value. What you're doing is going forward to a new life. So I'm all for you now. And so everything's changed, but I think it's changed for the better. Don't you?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought you might have come up with the 11 plus, which is unfortunately what we all had to pass the year, which was a total lottery. If you had a bad day at the office and you didn't come to the grammar school, you were in trouble in those days, and that doesn't apply now.
I think perhaps one of my greatest achievements was getting a degree when I was in my, well, what was I?
93.
I was about 89, I think, and I missed the first year because I got qualifications that covered it. But that was the year when they told you how to write essays. And of course, I hadn't written any for years, and it took me a long time to get used to it. But and many times I felt I'll never do it, but I did. So you will one day.
Yeah, getting a degree at 93 is very impressive.
Yeah.
If you actually Google Edna's name, it brings up national newspaper stories of Edna passing her English degree at age 93.
Yeah.
I think they think it's the oldest person ever passed a degree.
Yeah. So there's hope for you.
Next question.
How much has Britain changed since your childhood?
Well, when I was leaving school, there was only the chance of being a nurse or being a teacher. And I didn't want to be a teacher because I felt I couldn't keep order. And that was one, because I wasn't strong enough then. But, so, perhaps now, if it had been now, I would have gone straight into teaching. Anything else you want to know?
One last question.
If you could go back in time, what would you change about your life?
The last question.
Nothing.
That's a lovely answer.
You'd have still married Les, wouldn't you?
I was a very lucky person to know Les. He used to coach the English schools, and he was the
Rugby.
He was at rugby, and he used to go abroad with the teams when we played France. And then he used to have to arrange for their accommodation when they came to England, because they didn't like the English food. They thought we were horrible, you know.
Well, when he got any time left, he was a science teacher here.
Yes, and also he was a first-class bridge player.
Yes.
So I don't regret anything, no.
So was your husband, was he involved in the Army Cadet Force here?
Yes, he was in charge of the cadet force when it was an army, and later on it went over to the Air Force. But there were various people. He did it for a period, and also he joined the Home Guard, and he used to be in charge of the traffic through Birmingham at night. So he did his school teaching during the day, and at night he used to be helping the traffic to get through Birmingham to go where they got to go. So he was a man of many parts.
Where were the Home Guard based? Were they around
It was based in Grange Road, Erdington, and he was in charge of that group.
Oh, well.
So you see, he had many sides, and I was very lucky. And I don't regret anything. Now, is that all?
Well, that's the end of Mrs. Shaheen's questions. She wrote these ones. So any questions you want to ask about what school was like in the old days?
What was your school uniform like?
Sorry?
What was your school uniform?
Oh, the uniform wasn't very different from yours. It was a blazer and a badge, and we used to have to wear a tunic. But of course, you had to be very careful that you didn't spill food on your tunic, because you had it for about 5 years. There were no trousers. But the only thing is, you're lucky, because you could go to Tesco or some of the other. You're not tied to a school outfitter, are you? Well, at one time, you had to go to the school outfitter, and they made a lot of money out of us. They charged us, and however, we hadn't got much money, and it was a real difficulty. But of course, if we were below a certain income, we were helped by the local authority. That's right, isn't it?
And the boys had to wear caps.
Yes, that's right.
I was going to bring it with me.
But you had to wear a blazer too.
You had to wear a blazer.
Yeah.
We didn't just wear caps, no, we had to wear caps. And if you were caught without your cap walking down the road, you were in front of your headmaster.
And as soon as you went away, you threw your cap away.
Yeah.
Well, did you have to keep your blazer on all day, or did you take it off for lessons, or?
In my memory, we kept it on. I'm sure we did.
What was that?
Kept our blazers on all day long. We didn't do shirt sleeves.
I can't remember. I think we must have done.
Yeah, we did.
We only had a short blouse, white blouse under it all. But of course, you can buy uniforms so cheaply now, but we couldn't. And we were very hard up, because that was when I went, it was in the middle of the Depression, and a lot of people hadn't got jobs. And I know I wanted a hockey stick, and it took me about 3 years to have enough money to get it. Did you find that too?
Yeah. I'd be 6 when the war started, so I was pretty young, remembering going to bed every night in the shelter, stuff like that.
That's
we used to, saying earlier, we used to collect shrapnel on the way to school.
That's right.
From the bombs. It'd be red hot.
Yeah.
And it was a competition as who could find the biggest piece of shrapnel.
Yeah.
But we were fit. We went unhealthy. Although we didn't have a lot to eat.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Oh well.
I've got a question. What were the school dinners like in those days?
Not bad. They were cooked by Mrs. Hands, who was an old lady who lived in, was it Green Lane? She lived very close to the school, and it was just meat when they got any, potatoes, roast potatoes, not enough of them, and the pud, which was probably apple crumble or apple something. Wasn't bad.
We had free milk. We did have free milk, and we used to have pig bins, because during the war all the waste food was collected and fed to the pigs.
Yeah.
And there were 2 great things outside the canteen, and all the scraps went in the pig bin.
Yeah. That's probably why we had rats.
Yeah, probably why we had some good pigs.
I've talked so much, I don't think there's much left, is there?
Any more questions? There's not many questions. One more from me about homework. Did you have homework in those days? What did you do? How much?
Yes, that was compulsory. Do you?
I bet we did.
Do you have, how long does it take you to do it?
An hour. Half an hour.
Well, ours took a lot longer than that. We used to have at least two pieces of work, didn't we?
Yeah.
It was.
I'd say it was an average hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yes, easily. An hour and a half to 2 hours. I can't get over you all. Aren't there any naughty ones amongst you? Because we had some naughty ones.
I'm sure there's 1 or 2 more. And I'm asking you all the question. How about the school camps? Can you tell me about the school camps?
Well, I can tell you a story about that. I was a secretary then, but I was a very good friend of the science mistress, and she said, "You've got to come to the camp." Well, during the summer, the secretary used to have to stop by herself in the school and and they had the records of every child who entered the school. So there was a boy in the 6th form who knew all about science, So he fixed the phone that no one could ring me from Birmingham, where I was employed by Birmingham. So for a week, I had a week's holiday in the camp, and nobody knew where I was, and nobody was able to call me because he'd fixed the...
Yeah.
So as I say...
You were pretty good at going missing when you were school student. We used to have a very good 7-a-side rugby team.
Oh yes, I used to come to
4
that.
years on the trot.
Yes,
We won
that's right.
the local championship, and Edna used to lead the cheering.
Yeah.
The school was given the afternoon off to go and watch the final.
Yes.
And you used to lead
I
the
used to
cheering.
get
You
there.
were supposed to be here, weren't you?
Yeah. But anyway, you seem a bit meek and mild to me, but I don't know whether you are. Are they?
This is school council, is it? So, any more questions from anybody?
How many lessons do you have a day?
How many lessons a day?
Yeah.
Did we have 4 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon?
Yeah, we used to have double lessons sometimes. Average of 3 in the morning and...
We had double
average 3 and
lessons
3.
for science
Yeah,
and...
had double maths.
Yes, double maths, yes.
There certainly was probably a lot of emphasis on maths and English,
Yes, there was.
obviously,
In
which I'm
maths,
sure there is.
maths and English were very important then. But there was history and geography as well.
Mum, we did have funny choices. I can remember having to make a choice whether to take German
That's
or
right.
mechanics.
Yes,
It's a funny choice.
yes,
I took mechanics and finished up as an engineer.
yeah. Yeah.
How long was lunchtime and break time?
Oh, a long time. It was about 2 hours at one time. I could go home and come back. So
I don't
that was,
think that applied to the students.
and then they cut it down, didn't they?
Yeah, I can only remember an hour when I was here, but
Oh no, it was. Well, I couldn't have got home and had a meal and come back in an hour.
well, I think you were absent without leave, probably. So.
I shouldn't be surprised. Yeah. How long's your lunch hour?
15 minutes.
Is it long enough for you?
Not really.
Yeah.
No. Do you like your school dinners?
Yeah.
They are all right.
The plate's kind of dirty.
Mm. Oh well.
Shouldn't be dirty.
The recorder's still on.
Yeah.
Can I ask any questions?
Yeah.
Were you ever hit by the teachers?
Let me think. Biffa Bennett used to throw a board rubber, and if he hit anyone, it hurt him. No.
No,
I don't think I was ever hit by anyone. I
well,
don't think girls were.
girls probably, I don't know whether the girls were, but the boys, the headmaster used to cane us
Oh,
pretty violently.
And I was next door to him.
Yeah.
He was very much a martinet. If you did something wrong, he used to cane you, and he really did cane you. And I used to hear the screams when they were. So I used to say, "Are you going to cane someone?" And he said, "Yes." So I said, "Well, I'm going for a walkabout."
I've honestly known boys come to school with a cushion in their pants.
Yeah,
But if they were expected to be
Yeah.
caned.
yeah. Well, do you think they got away with that?
Well, it wasn't illegal at the time.
Oh, no.
So what sort of things would they be caned for? What sort of things?
Not wearing a cap.
Well, one boy had taken a raincoat from and he'd put it. It wasn't his. He did it deliberately. He put it in. It was raining very heavily. He put it in the mud, and he was caned for that. But he wasn't a normal boy. He shouldn't have been caned. You know, nowadays it wouldn't have happened.
You could be caned for eating in the street.
Oh yes.
Eating in the
Yes,
street
you
was
could.
a caning
Yeah.
offence if he caught you eating
Yeah.
something.
And if you were a lady, and that applied to us, you always wore a hat. You weren't a lady if you didn't wear a hat. And with us, it was the school uniform, you see.
Now, what do we think of Edna's hat out of 10? 9 out of 10?
Well, I put it on because my hair's a mess. Well, have you enjoyed your little interlude?
Yeah.
I think we really appreciate you coming here today. Can you give me a round of applause for Edna?
Thank you very
Great
much.
to meet someone from so fine.
I think on behalf of Edna, I should say it's been absolutely brilliant, and you know, the response we've had and the interest is terrific. I just hope it works both ways. You know,
we're not so very different from you, really, are we?
No, we never are.